They buried her just before noon, and by dusk the crowd was long gone. The flowers wilted. The last car had rolled away down the gravel path. But I stayed Frank Monroe, old soldier, husband of 45 years. I just couldn't walk away. Not yet. Not while the air still felt thick with everything I'd lost and nothing I'd ever prepared for, because you can live through war zones, survive surgeries, see 72 winters pass. But you're never ready for that kind of silence, that heavy, echoing quiet, when you realize the only person you really want to talk to is lying beneath the stone you're standing over. So when the police lights came slashing through the cemetery fog and someone barked, "You're trespassing, sir," I barely blinked. Trespassing? This was sacred ground to me, a place where the world spun slower, where every minute felt like a bargain I'd struck with God himself, just for a little more time. I hadn't meant to stay this long. Honestly, the funeral ended hours ago, family gone, friends vanished. The last cousin offered me a soft nod before he left, like he knew I'd need a little extra time. I stood there next to Evelyn's grave, just waiting, I guess, for some sign, some small voice to break through. The sun was sinking, painting the headstones gold, and the place was emptying out one careful goodbye at a time. I whispered things no one else will ever now thinks only a husband can say after 45 years. My hand on the polished stone, the other clutching this little velvet pouch, too scared to open it, too proud to let go. The old navy blue suit I wore was choking me at the neck, baggy around the waist, but it was the one I wore the night I asked her to marry me, and pinned to my lapel was a faded service medal, half hidden by the collar, as if part of me was still trying to remember who I used to be before everything hurt so much. The wind kept picking up dry leaves, scratching around my shoes, but I didn't move. Ide fashabursha. I'd held a friend's hand as he bled out in a crater still. Nothing prepared me for this kind of empty. A groundskeeper passed by once, slowing down, but not saying a word, just nodded. The kind of nod men share when there's nothing left to say. Around 6, the gates clanged shut. Lanterns flickered on near the chapel, but I stayed, telling myself just one more goodbye, Frank, one more minute. The pouch in my hand, it held a letter I'd written to Evelyn back during the Gulf War, one I promised to show her someday. But you know how it goes, someday never comes, and now it was probably too late. So I figured maybe now I could finally read it aloud. Just once, to the only person who'd ever really mattered. My hand shook as I unfolded it, ink nearly gone, but the words still there. If you're reading this, it means I made it home, but my voice just fell apart, dissolved into the breeze. That's when headlights cut through the Shadowsa. Cop cruiser crept down the path, tires crunching. I squinted, shielding my eyes, but didn't move. Out stepped this young officer, tall, squared away, maybe late 20s, walking like the world depended on Ithand already near his belt. He called, "Sir, the cemetery's closed. You're trespassing." I folded the letter, real careful. "I was just leaving," I said, though my voice was so loaded down with unsaid things. It must have sounded like an anchor. The kid paused, maybe heard something in my tone, but the rules took over. "I need you to step away from the grave and come with me, sir." I looked at Evelyn's name-blurred letters in the half-light. "Can I have one more minute?" I asked. He shook his head. "All city property and closing hours." I let out a breath, stepped back, not away from her, but closer to the edge of everything. Instinct took over. I reached into my coat, handed him my ID, my old service number, and tried again, steadier this time. She was my wife for 45 years. I just needed to finish saying goodbye. He looked at the ID, looked at me, and for a split second I thought, maybe he'd get it, but he just muttered in his radio, "Possible vagrant, still on site, refusing to leave." I heard every word, felt a dull ache that wasn't quite anger, wasn't fear, just a kind of disbelief that sticks to your ribs. I sat down on the bench by the headstone, the letter in my lap. The officer stepped up, more agitated now. "Sir, stand up now. You're resisting a lawful order." My knees ached, my whole body heavy, but I told him, I'm not resisting, I'm remembering. Didn't matter. He reached for my wrist, metal cuffs flashing in the dying light. My breath caught. I looked at Evelyn's name, the flowers wilting, and as the first cuff clicked shut, something in me just went quiet, not broken, just deeper, like a well with no bottom. I didn't resist, didn't speak, just let it happen. My mind wandered desert nights, burning oil, boots crunching sand, but this was colder, meaner, less human than anything I'd known. He tried to guide me to the car. I stumbled, knees gone, and he gripped my arm tighter, thinking I was making it worse. "Don't make this harder, sir." I couldn't believe it. I wasn't angry, just tired in a way you don't explain to anyone. And then it Chanita's sound at the gate, shoes hitting pavement, a slow, deliberate march. The officer turned, confused, but I didn't have to look. I knew that rhythm, the sound of polished soles, the silence that comes when men mean business. 6 figures in dress blues came through the dusk, metals glinting. Tommy Rodriguez led them, 28, a Marine I'd mentored at the VFW, a kid who knew what today was. A neighbor had called him, said something's wrong at the cemetery, didn't hesitate. He just put on his uniform and showed up. What he saw stopped him cold. Me cuffed, broken, a cop trying to look tough. The Marines didn't shout, didn't raise a fuss, they just walked up, silent, steady. The officer froze, didn't know what to do. For the first time all day, my eyes filled Yuppie. I wasn't alone anymore. Tommy looked right at me, not the cuffs, not the car, just at me, and I nodded. He stepped forward, calm as granite. "What's the charge here, officer?" The cop stuttered, "Trespassing." Refused to leave. Tommy nodded, took his time. This man buried his wife today. Did he attack anyone? Damage anything? Threaten anyone? The officer hesitated. "No, sir." "Then why's he in cuffs?" Behind Tommy, the other Marine stood at attention, a silent juryman who know what it means to stand up for what's right. A crowd started gathering, neighbors, veterans, people filming, the tension thick as rope. Suddenly, the authority in that place wasn't the badge. It was the blue uniforms and the silence they brought. The officer stepped back, mumbling. Tommy pointed at my wrists. "You tasered him?" My hands were shaking, red marks showing. Tommy stepped up, unlocked the cuffs. The cop tried protest, but one look from the Marine shut him down. "You've done enough, we'll take it from here." I swayed, and 2 Marines caught minute restraining, just holding me up the way you do for family. The cemetery director showed up, out of breath, waving a clipboard. "Mr. Monroe has written permissions allowed to stay past closing today. It's in the funeral file." The place went quiet. The cop's face turned white. Tommy just looked at me. "Sir, would you like to finish your goodbye?" This time I nodded, real sure, and the Marines brought me back to Evelyn's grave. One stood watch, one placed a pouch in my hand, and Tommy stayed by my side, silent, steady, present. The letter was wrinkled, but I read it out loud, not to the wind, but to her. My voice cracked, but I got through it, and the Marines stood guard like grief was an enemy to hold back. The crowd behind us grew, veterans, kids with flags, a man with flowers. Nobody came for drama, just to honor what was right. The officer who'd cuffed me stood off to the side, couldn't meet anyone's eyes. His radio kept squawking, but he ignored it. His supervisor rolled in, probably thinking about reports and questions, but none of that mattered, not to me, not to Evelyn, not to the men beside me. I finished my letter, kissed it, and tucked it into the flowers. "I made a home," I whispered. Tommy didn't speak, just put a hand on my shoulder. We stayed there as the sky darkened, the wind softened, and the Marines never moved. At that moment, it wasn't about rules or uniforms, it was about keeping a promise. No one who served gets left behind, not in battle, not in grief, not while brothers still stand. Word got out, videos, news clips, headlines, apologies, but the real story wasn't about a badge or a taser. It was about a march through cemetery gates, the sound of metals clinking, the moment 7 Marines reminded everyone what dignity still looks like. 3 weeks later, I went back, same suit, new flowers, a thick envelope in my lap. 7 handwritten letters, one for each Marine who'd stood by me, words I wrote slow and careful like Evelyn taught me. I thanked them for lifting me up, for reminding me what brotherhood means, for showing up when the world tried to push me down. That's what stuck, the memory of being seen, of being carried, not as a soldier, but as a man, as someone who mattered. I whispered to Evelyn, "You were right, there's still good men left." The story exploded itself, phone footage everywhere. Talk shows arguing, police policy changing, officer on leave, new training, crisis counselors added, but none of that really mattered to me. I didn't want revenge, just understanding. The real reform happened the day 7 Marines proved that service doesn't expire. Letters poured in from widows, veterans, kids. I read every one, kept them beside Evelyn's nightstand, reading one out loud to her grave every morning. The Marines came back, quietly. 2 weeks Laterno news. No fanfare, just brothers bringing coffee, a folded flag, and a little peace. They stayed, saluted, left nothing but footprints and a lighter heart. So I kept showing up, flowers, stories, old Sioux people recognizing me. Not from the news, but from how I knelt. Kids would wave, veterans nod, officers call me sir. I never asked to be a symbol. I just wanted to keep my promise, the one I made in war, and my wedding at Evelyn's hospital bed. Don't let me be alone. I kept showing up because love like service isn't just said, it's lived. It's in the pain, the silence, the small acts that nobody sees. The grave became a landmark, not for the name, but for what happened there, who knelt, who stood, who remembered. Months passed, the news faded, but people remembered. I still walked that path, cane in hand, heart full of words, pouch tucked inside my coat, because every step said, I'm still here, and she still matters. That was everything an oath no uniform could ever take away. One morning, I left a final letter under a stone for whoever might kneel there next. If you ever feel forgotten, stand anywhere, never truly alone. No trumpets, no headlines, just a soft breeze, and maybe, just maybe, laugh in the trees, her voice proud, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled without tears. Service ends, honor does not. So what do you think? Is respect a thing of the past? Or does it just take the right moment and the right Pleto remind us what it looks like? Share your thoughts below, because this story isn't over, not as long as someone remembers to stand.